Let's build Ursarctic! Is that 7? I think that was 7. I need to do 7 because it's like their theme. And welcome back to Let's Build, the show where I take an archetype I am unfamiliar with and do my best to try to learn it from scratch, to build it without any knowledge whatsoever. I'm a Hardleg Joe, if you didn't know. Joining me today, as always, is Twitch chat. Say hello, Twitch chat. Say something friendly. Oh, look at them. They're always so nice. I have such a great community. And speaking of which, this episode is brought to you by a member of that community, One Cat Monarch, who donated on the Patreon and requested this episode. And if you like this show and you want to request episodes yourself, that's always an option. I'm not sure if it's necessarily worth the price, but you can check out the Patreon, see for yourself. If nothing else, $1 gets you on the patrons Discord, and then you can join this goofy community over there. Just help me out with shows like this. Speaking of this show, if you're new here, if you're unfamiliar with Let's Build, it is a blind deck building show. Basically, I'm going to take a look at these cards, I'm going to read over them, I'm going to sit down with Twitch chat, we're going to figure out together how to build this. As a result, it'll not be the best Ursarctic deck, it may not even be a good Ursarctic deck. However, in doing this, you should learn about deck building, some of the ins and outs of Yu-Gi-Oh! And in particular, this will serve as sort of a deep dive on the archetype. If you want to know what these cards do and how they work, we will be talking about them in depth. So if you're up for that, welcome aboard, and if not, you could probably find that on YouTube or whatever. Either way, let's go ahead and jump on into things. All right, chat. So we're gonna play a little Dora the Explorer here. This is like the 3rd episode of Let's Build. Let's see if you've figured out the patterns yet. What's the first thing we look at when trying to figure out how an archetype works? Swipe or no swiping? Boss monster. That's right, it's the field spell. See, they do things. If you're unfamiliar with Yu-Gi-Oh!, if you're trying to build a deck for the first time, it's usually good to start with the field spell if the archetype has one. These tend to unify effects and let you know exactly what you're in for. And Ursarctics do have a field spell. It's Ursarctic Big Dipper. This is once per turn. If your Ursarctic monster would tribute a monsters to activate its effects, you can banish one level 7 or higher Ursarctic from your graveyard instead. Alright, so that's already kind of a bad sign. I'm starting to have memories now. I've not, like, played this deck a lot, but I tried to build them once before, like 2 years ago, and figured out they were really bad, and this is a key sign of that. If you have to tribute monsters as cost for your effects, that means you're always going minus whatever you do. This lets you alleviate the minus, but what you want from a field spell is to give you more pluses, not to solve an inherent problem in your deck. But there's more text on here. Let's see what else we've got here. Each time a monster is special summoned, place 1 counter on this card. Once per turn, if a monster is special summoned, and an Ursarctic synchro is on the field, except during the damage step, you can remove all counters from this card, minimum 7. I don't know why it just doesn't say remove at least 7 counters from this card. Then target 1 monster your opponent controls and take control of it. Oh, that's why it doesn't say. They don't let you stockpile. You can't get like 14 counters on this and then do it twice. Whenever you activate it, you must remove all. And then you get to steal a monster, which I mean is kind of a cool effect. Not something you want to see on a field spell though. I think from here, we usually want to look at the boss monsters. There were a couple people saying that back when I was asking them. They're like, look at the boss monsters first. And so that's the next. We have synchros. We have a level 7, a level 7, and a level 1 synchro. You don't see that very often. That's kind of a unique thing. But we'll start with the high-level synchros first. Let's see if we can understand them. They're both the same, but this one has more attack. So I'm going to imagine this is the boss of the boss monsters. Ursarctic Septentrion, which is a cool name and a very cool design. If nothing else, if you wanted giant bear robots with a sword bigger than themselves, you got it. Can't be synchro summoned. That's not something you want to see on a synchro monster. That means this has weird summoning requirements. Okay, must be special summoned from your extra deck by sending 2 monsters you control with a level difference of 7 to the graveyard. A level 8 or higher tuner and a non-tuner synchro monster. Okay, that's a little bit tricky, but this is essentially a reverse synchro. Instead of adding the levels together, you're minusing them. You need a 7 and a 1. Basically a level 8 or higher tuner and a level 1 non-tuner synchro monster. Very, very difficult requirements. And what do we get from these requirements? Negate the effects of all face-up monsters without a level that were special summoned from the extra deck. Alright, so it's got a floodgate effect, but that only works against monsters that don't have a level, which are Links and Ixies. So this is maybe an anti-meta call against a Link-based format or an Ixie-based format, but it only affects the extra deck, which is weird, because are there non-extra deck monsters that don't have levels? I don't think there are, but they added that in just in case they ever made some in the future. What else? If your opponent special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can add an Ursarctic from your deck to your hand. You can only use this once per turn. So your boss monster searches a card, and it's a floodgate for Ixies and Links. Not the greatest. What's the other synchro? Is this perhaps better? Ursarctic Grand Chariot. Again, very cool. Always a fan of mechs with scythes. Can't be synchro summoned. Must be, okay, it's got the same exact summoning condition. It's another reverse. You can't make this in anything that normally makes level 7 synchros. You have to get an 8 tuner and a level 1 synchro monster. And really, I'm pretty sure there's no other way to make a level 1, because most synchros add up. So I think this deck is the only one. So you basically need this guy plus a level 8 tuner in order to make these. They're very archetype locked, even if they don't look at it just on the face of it. Alright, so if this card is special summoned, target up to 2 other cards on the field and destroy them. Alright, it's when it's summoned, or if it's summoned, I guess, so it can't miss timing. Popping 2, not bad. I'm wondering if you have a way to summon this during the opponent's turn, or if this is only like a go second breaking the board kind of card. Once per turn, when a card or effect is activated that targets an Ursarctic, you can tribute 1 monster from your hand or field to negate that activation. So it's got protection, but it's like the worst protection ever. Only against targeting effects, and you have to tribute a monster in order to do it. Granted, if you've got the field spell, you can banish from the graveyard instead. So there's that, but yeah, these bosses not looking super worth it unless they're really easy to summon. I do know from experience they have level 8 tuners. We'll look at those in a moment. Let's go ahead and look at our last synchro and see how the hell we make this. Alright, Ursarctic Polari. Cannot be synchro summoned, which we should probably expect at this point. Must be special summoned by sending 2 monsters you control with a level difference of 1 to the graveyard, a tuner and a non-tuner. Alright, so I guess that's mildly generic. Because basically, like, if you have a level 3 tuner and a level 4 non-tuner, you can make this. You just need a tuner and a non-tuner that are one thing apart. I think in this case, we've got the level 8 tuners like I mentioned, and then level 7 non-tuners, yeah. So if you get a tuner and a non-tuner, you can make this thing. And then what does it do when it's summoned? If this is special summoned, you can activate 1 Ursarctic Big Dipper directly from your deck. Alright, so it's the synchro that searches the field spell. You can tribute a level 7 or higher monster, add it to your hand, or special summon 1 Ursarctic from your graveyard. You can only use each effect once per turn. Alright, so basically in this deck, you're going to summon this with a level 8 tuner and a level 7 non-tuner. And then you have to get another monster on the field. If you get the tuner, then this plus the tuner automatically makes your other big synchros. If you get a non-tuner, then this can at least tribute that to get the tuner back out of your graveyard. So, I mean, they made it slightly easier on you, but it's unfortunate when you have a monster with this much text, and most of it is a weird summoning condition, and something that helps you overcome the weird summoning condition of your other monsters that have weird summoning conditions. All this does on summon is search the field spell. And the field spell is not great as we already went. Although I guess you can at least immediately use this. Okay, so there's that. It searches the field spell, and then you can use this to banish the non-tuner from the grave to summon the tuner. So if you can make this, you get to this, essentially, in a roundabout way, assuming your opponent doesn't remove the field spell before you could do anything with it. That still seems like a lot. We'll have to look at these monsters and see how easy they are to summon. There's also a fusion. We'll come back to that. I want to see this first. We're kind of building an idea of how to do this, right? We know we want to end on these, which means going into this, which means summoning 2 of these. So let's read over these and see how we get them on the field so we can figure out exactly what our game plan is. All right, so our first level 8 tuner, Ursarctic Megatanis. During the main phase, quick effect, you contribute 1 other level 7 or higher monster from your hand. Special summon this card from your hand. Also, you can't special summon for the rest of this turn except monsters with a level. Alright, so that gives you a way to get them out. You can tribute, you have to get rid of another card. And now it's coming back to me. Let me double check this real quick. During the main phase, tribute 1 other level 7 or higher, special summon. Is it true for the non-tuners too? Tribute 1 other level or 7 or... Okay. So all the Ursarctics are level 7 or level 8. And they're all summoned by tributing a monster from your hand. And herein lies the big problem with Ursarctic. You need to get 2 of these out in order to summon Polari. But in order to summon each of those, you have to tribute another card from your hand. So if you have a hand that starts with 4 Ursarctics, you need to use all 4 of them to make this, to make 1 of these. So each of these require an investment equal to a link 4. And let me tell you, this is no Appaloosa. This is no excess code. These are pale comparisons for the amount of effort you get into it. And some of the spell traps presumably help you alleviate some of that. Obviously, the field spell lets you banish, so if you start with this instead of having to search it, you can do this with just 3 cards. However, you don't want to be in a position where your archetype has inherent weaknesses, and the rest of your cards are there to help fix those weaknesses. Because that means if your opponent can keep you from accessing those cards, or if you just get a bad hand and you don't draw them, or anything else like that happens, you're going to be in a very bad position because your cards are starting with a detriment. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Thank you, chat. Who's that, kid? In most strategies, you have your monsters, and the spells and traps make them more powerful. In Ursarctic, you have the monsters, and your spell traps make them suck slightly less. Granted, these do have other effects. Let's read the rest of this. So if this card is special summoned while you control another Ursarctic, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, change it to face-down defense position. Alright, so you've got a Book of Moon here, but the price for activating it is pretty high. You have to have this in your hand, you have to discard another monster, and you must already control another Ursarctic monster, which means you have to have discarded another one previously, get something else, and then you can Book of Moon. Honestly, this would be pretty decent, and this might even see tech play in other decks, if it just didn't have this while you control another Ursarctic monster. If this was generic, this would be great, but as it stands, I'm not sure if this is great for removal. Although it does at least get you something where, like, if you could somehow draw a bunch of cards, ending on a Sceptron, where you're negating stuff, and then you can Book of Moon their other stuff to prevent them from going into, like, synchros, then this maybe becomes a little bit more powerful. What do the other 2 do? If this card is special summoned while you control an Ursarctic, target 1 spell trap and destroy it. Okay, that's not bad. And if this is special summoned, you can target 1 card in your opponent's graveyard, banish it. That's not too terribly bad either. So the tuners do have useful effects. It's just a pity that you've got to have a whole lot of setup to make them worth it. But it is really nice that these are, if you didn't notice, quick effect during the main phase. So you can summon these on the opponent's turn and do stuff. It's just, again, the cost is really high and you've got to already have setup. And these do have at least decent attack stats, 25, 24, 28. That's not terrible. The non-tuners, their stats not looking so well. Most of these are like, these would be pathetic on a level 4 monster. And they're on a level 7 that you need to summon. What do these do when they're summoned? Because I believe they do stuff too. If this card is summoned, you can special summon one Ursarctic from your hand, except itself. Okay. You can only use this once per turn. Alright, and all the effects are when this card is special summoned. You don't have to use this effect. So again, you have this thing set up where most cards would use this for extension. This kind of seems to be used to suck less. This means you can get one of the tuners out and use its effect without having to tribute another card in the process. So in fact, I'm going to go ahead and say this is a 3 of. This is a 3 of automatically. You're probably going to want to pay 3 of these as well. Let's put 1 each of our boss monster. And because the field spell helps you not suck, even though it's searchable, I'm going to go ahead and put 3 of those in there as well. Let's look at these other ones. If this card is special summoned, add 1 Ursarctic from your deck to your hand, except for Polar. Alright. So this alleviates some of the minus that you're going. You have to tribute 1, but you get to add 1 back and you can search anything. Of course, if you tribute to summon this and get ashed, you're in real big trouble. And what does this one do? If this is special summon, target an Ursarctic in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You know, in most decks I would say this is like maybe a 2 of or even a 1 of, if you play it at all. But considering every single card you activate is going to put an Ursarctic in the graveyard, this is probably a 3 of. Because you're always going to have this live. In fact, as soon as you summon this, you will have discarded an Ursarctic, so it will be live. So I guess you have that, and I guess because you want as many high-level monsters as possible, because you can only summon these by tributing high levels, you're just putting in every Ursarctic. You're just playing all of them. Which, already fills up your deck a lot. There's not a lot of room for tech cards. I guess these do kind of count as tech cards, because you have spell trap removal. You don't necessarily have to run that, because you have a built-in way to do it, assuming you're set up. You have a Book of Moon if you're set up. You have a DD Crow if you're set up. So you have some stuff, but you're taking up a lot of things with bricks. So before we go into the spells, we've got one more monster here. Let's look over this. Ultimate Flagship Ursatron. This card is always treated as an Ursarctic and a Drytron card. Must be special summoned with Ursarctic Drytron. Once per turn, if an effect monster is special summoned to your field, you can add an Ursarctic or Drytron from your deck to your hand. Once per turn, you can target 1 banished monster, add it back to your hand. Okay, so I guess it's an extender. What's its materials? I guess it's on the fusion spell. Ursarctic Drytron. Special summon 1 ultimate flagship from your extra deck by banishing 1 Big Dipper and 1 Drytron Fafnir from your hand and or field. Although you can banish 1 of them from your deck instead if Ursarctic Polari or Drytron Alpha Thubin is on the field. If you would tribute a monster to activate Ursarctic or Drytron, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. You can only use once per turn. What's Drytron Fafnir? That's their spaceship, right? When activated, add a Drytron. The Drytrons are a ritual archetype. I guess you technically could include them in the Ursarctics. I mean, the level 12s can be discarded, and you can then ritual summon out of the graveyard by using this. But Drytron are kind of famous for you've got to include all the Drytron names. And these are level 1s, so you can't use them. And to summon these, you must tribute another Drytron or ritual monster. So there is no synergy between the main decks of these, and I'm not sure how you could run like a small Drytron package. You'd have to essentially run this, and then I guess you could search this. It's not worth it. This is a lore thing, because the Drytrons are named after the Big Dipper stars, which are part of the Ursa Major constellation. Ursa being the Ursarctic, Ursa being Latin for bear, which is why they're bears and why they're also spaceships, so it all comes together lore-wise. If you want to make a lore deck, this is the deck for you. It won't run very well. Let's check out these other spells. We've got some other spells and a trap. Maybe one of these will help things out. Ursarctic Departure. This is a regular spell card. Discard 1 card, add 2 Ursartics from your deck to your hand. If you attribute monsters to activate an Ursartic monster, except the turn this was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from the graveyard instead. You can only use each once per turn. With how bad this deck is, you should be able to use it the turn it was sent. Also, it shouldn't be once per turn. This is like Medallion of the Ice Barrier levels. With something like this, you should be able to use as many as you get. It's still a search card. It searches 2 when it sets up your graveyard, so you gotta play it at 3, but I don't have to like it. Okay, Ursarctic Slider. Sounds like a delicious frosty burger. This is a quick play spell. Target one of your Ursartic monsters that is banished or in the graveyard, special summon it, but it cannot attack and destroy it during the end phase. For the rest of the turn after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters except with a level. You can only add 1 per turn. Well, at least it didn't negate the effect of the monster summon, so if nothing else, you know, this brings this back and you can maybe pop a card or whatever. It's a quick effect Monster Reborn, so it counts as disruption. It sucks that it's only once per turn. It sucks that if you use it during your opponent's turn, it destroys it at the end phase. It really is a shame how this deck could have been decent for the modern day, but they added a whole bunch of restrictions from like the early synchro era to these cards that even if they didn't have those restrictions wouldn't have been good, but they would have at least been more playable. I'm still gonna tentatively say 3, if nothing else, just because this basically counts as 1 extra copy of whatever. Like if you get 2 Ursartics and this, you can make Polari, assuming it's a tuner and a non-tuner. Okay, Ursarctic Radiation. This is a continuous spell with some pretty nice artwork. You get to see Septatron or whatever with his huge sword. Activate this by placing 7 counters on it. So I guess there are more Ursartic counters. Each time an Ursartic monster is special summoned from the hand or extra deck, you can remove 1 counter, draw 1 card. Once per turn during the end phase, you can target 1 Ursartic card in your graveyard, accept Radiation, shuffle it into the deck. You can only control 1 Ursarctic Radiation. Alright, I'd heard about this. This card says you can draw 7. They have a draw 7 card, and they're still not very good. Obviously this is a continuous, so it's prone to any kind of disruption. Ghost Ogre, you can Ash Blossom it, although I think you can only Ash it the first time they try to activate it, then they could just do it again. You're definitely playing this at 3. Because again, the whole point of the deck, the whole reason why it sucks so bad is because you have to tribute cards to do anything. And this is training wheels. This removes the minus you have to take because every time you discard to summon, you get to draw a card. Alright, and that just leaves the trap. Ursarctic Quint Charge. Once per turn, you can pay 700 life points, because the theme is 7. Activate one of the following effects. Add an Ursartic from your graveyard to your hand. Tribute 2 Ursartic monsters, even face down. And if you do, special summon from your extra deck 1 Ursartic with a level equal to the difference in the levels of those monsters, ignoring their summoning conditions. When your Ursartic Synchro is destroyed by an opponent's attack, activate this effect. Your opponent must shuffle cards into their deck so that the total number of cards in their field, hand, and graveyard is 7. There's a lot going on here. This has a lot of effects. 1, the thematic pay 700, just cause. It's always weird when they're like, yeah, you know, this didn't need a cost, it's an awful card, but paying 700 is funny. Add an Ursartic from your graveyard to your hand. A very slow search effect. Your graveyard will be full of Ursartics though, so I guess that's worth. The Tribute 2 would seem cool if their levels didn't have to line up, if this was a way to cheat a monster out of the extra deck during your opponent's turn, but they have to line up. Although I guess you can summon during your opponent's turn and get this out and then do stuff, so it kind of works, but that means you have to leave like a Polari on the field, just like hanging out, and then hope you can like Book of Moon something, and then summon this guy and pop 2 if you have the trap. It's like classic like 5-card combo material. I do like this, that when they destroy it, they have to do everything. The only problem is because it counts the graveyard, and because it's 7, which if they're going second, they're only going to have 6 cards anyway. I just can't imagine this activating in a way that doesn't benefit your opponent. Because if they have like a whole bunch of cards, if they've got like 7 cards on field plus a hand, it's likely that most of those cards are going to have something that can negate or destroy this before it resolves. And if they don't, if they have a graveyard full of cards, then they're like, oh, I can shuffle my resources back into the deck. Thanks for allowing me to recycle. I appreciate it. I'm gonna say no, just because we're already full up on Ursarctic things, and we want to have some room for some tech cards. As always, let's go ahead and put the Master Duel tax in here, because this is a Master Duel legal deck. That's what we always build. So we've got the 3 Ash, the 3 Maxi, and the 2 Called By, which leaves us with exactly 2 spots. 2 spots available. Not great. Someone did point out, they were asking about, like, what else do we put in the extra deck? Because a lot of these, like 7s and 8s, you can't make a whole bunch and you have to play high-level monsters. The one exception, of course, being Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. We have a level 3 and a level 7. We also have Maxi, that's a 2 and an 8, which means we can actually make level 10 synchros if we want to normal summon one of these with one of the high-level monsters. Which means, like most good decks, you can at least play Baronne de Fleur in here. Put that in there, have yourself a fun time. You've got a good card in your deck. Let's go ahead and look over the level 10 synchros and see if there's anything else in here. I know most of these by heart already, and I don't think most of them are all that useful. Baronne was noticeable for being one of the first level 10 synchros that actually did something. Most of them either require specific things like a worm monster, or this takes a Jirac tuner and 2 non-tuner dinosaurs. But you could probably put a couple things in here. Leo of the Sacred Tree, it can't be targeted with card effects, except during your main phase 2. So, you know, if you need to beat over something, that's good. Ruddy Rose Dragon, generic. Basically, if you have anything that you think you could summon, you might as well put it in here. There's no point in not even trying. Alright, so that's pretty much it for level 10 synchros that we could actually make that actually do anything. But as someone in chat has pointed out, if you get Ash and Maxi on board, you can make a level 5 synchro. So we might as well throw a couple level 5 synchros in here. You know, get Catastor, get High Speed Broid Chanbara. Very unlikely, but if you're down in like bronze or silver, it could happen, you know. Oh, wait, we missed one. Sword Soul Chengying. I forgot that this is generic. Yeah, you might as well throw this one in here too. This gains effects when you banish cards, and you can banish stuff. So it probably works. But yeah, that leaves us with 2 slots open. Alright, so after talking it over with chat for a little bit, trying to figure out what to put in these last 2 slots, and I guess we just make it 3, just to make this deck a little bit more consistent. We'll go to 41. And I think the one that I like the most is Chaos Hunter. If you're unfamiliar with this is a pretty popular tech for dealing with both Runic and Branded. It's if your opponent special summons a monster, you can discard a card, special summon this from your hand, your opponent cannot banish cards. This stops the Runic from activating their stuff because they can't banish from the top of your deck. At least I think that's how it works. Even if it doesn't, it at least prevents them from milling you, which means their win condition is a lot more difficult. It's also a high-level card you could discard with either of these, or if you get it onto the field and you want to get rid of it, you can use it with Mechabilis and make Polari and do stuff with that. Same thing with most of the other tech cards. There are a lot of other options. My initial gut reaction was Nibiru, which is good in some formats, but not really in the current one. Depending on what the meta is, this might be a better option than Chaos Hunter. It's not level 7, you can't really do anything with the level on there, but just the fact that it's high level means even if it's not useful, you can discard it with the monsters to summon them. You don't normal summon in this, which means if you want to, you could also put in like 3 Vanity's Rulers, and instead of trying to use their actual win condition, you could just tribute summon over two Ursarctics and make this. This is arguably just a better use of 2 monsters than Septenrion is, because it just prevents your opponent from special summoning. And then if you had this and you were drawing while you were doing that, you basically play Protect the Castle with Vanity's Ruler. You get Vanity's Ruler with like a Book of Moon hand trap that you can use to stop in case they try to beat everything over. If you're going for a more go second build, if you want to focus on, you know, trying to make Grand Chariot or using these to do stuff while you're summoning, then Alpha, Master of Beast, and Pankratops are both great options. These are level 8 and level 7 respectively, so they work perfectly with here. Alpha's a pretty good, like, going second tech card on his own, even if you're not playing Beast Warriors. But because all of these are Beasts and Beast Warriors, you actually do have a little bit of synergy here. If something gets trapped on the field and, like, its level gets reduced or you can't use it, this can bounce it back to the hand while bouncing back the opponent's monsters. So it has some potential there in addition to being able to be used for, like, synchro material. Same thing with Pankratops, although instead of bouncing itself, it tributes itself. So this is maybe slightly worse in terms of being useful on the field, and slightly better in just that it's a better card. A couple other suggestions people had that I don't think are as good. 3 Trolling Toads, this is just a nice extender. You don't have a single normal summon in this, so having one could be decent, although I'd probably like to see something with higher attack. Although this can at least crash into a barrier statue to get hit by those. Tidal, the Dragon Ruler of Waterfalls. These are all water monsters. They're level 7s. This is level 7. Works out. And Salvage. Add 2 water monsters with 1500 or less from your graveyard to your hand. A lot of your level 7s have, I guess all of them have 1500 or less. So it's a great way to recover things. The reason why I don't think these are as good is because the deck itself is entirely based around helping you recover and extend and get more stuff. So I don't think like you need even more of that. I would rather cover some bases with like a floodgate effect or more damage or removal, stuff like that that helps you get around things. You could also, of course, just play Pot of Extravagance in this. That might be the better way to go. Try to draw as much as you want. Of course, in that case, you then have to play like 3 Septitron and 3 Grand Chariot. And these can be pretty expensive. I believe both of these are URs in Master Duel. So unless you just happen to get lucky and you got all these already, or you like to gamble with your extra deck, that might be an option. You could also play the other pot, the one that lets you choose. Really, the extra deck doesn't seem to matter. It's possible you can play some links in case like you don't lock yourself into level 7s or higher. That seems very unlikely though. I don't think it really doesn't matter. If you're in the point where you have to summon like a Nightmare Unicorn to win, you're probably not winning that game anyway. Not with this deck. Alright, so it turns out the Tidal is actually banned. For some reason I got this confused with the Wind Dragon Ruler. You can't even run that. I've been trolled by chat. I should have known when they had the 3 trolling trolls out here. But anyway, now that we've got a functioning-ish deck, let's go ahead and take it into some test duels. Let's run it up against some stuff, see what we can do, see if we can figure out anything about this and what might possibly make it work. I think we want to go first in this deck. I think going first is what we'll want to do.
11 minutes later.
We tried so far and got so far, but in the end, we were just far.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
We summoned this dude. Activate. Activate. Give me the precious cards. This feels kind of good because it's like, hey, I'm getting 2 cards, except I need at least 2 cards to do literally anything. Normal the Ash. I want to not activate the effects. Pay half your life points. The attack of all monsters become equal to your life points at the end of this turn. Yep, we just lose. Let's go first. Alright. This perhaps works. Let me think about this. Okay, so I activate Polar, send this, and we'll send this guy. This guy, let's use thing. Let's go over the Moon one. That's probably the most useful. Then we'll play Ursarctic Slayer, and we'll send back our turn. You know. Then because there's 7 8, one of those 2 turns, level 1. So we got level 1 guys, so just a field spell. So we got a field spell in there, and because we got a field spell, we have extra cards in our graveyard. The sun, the ritual, and our graveyard. And that allows us to go into floodgates. So now we've got a floodgate, and 2 counters, and a Book of Moon live. Let's see what our opponent can do. Oh, it's a Mono Iwado. Oh, it's Rudic. I was like, I have my anti-Rudic card. It's a pity they have a Mono Iwado, so I can't even summon it anyway. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. I'm like, yeah, this deck has removal, it has all sorts of things, and the problem with that is that all those sorts of things require monster effects, So if they have a floodgate that stops monster effects, I'm just screwed. And there's the skill drain. Yeah, I'm just gonna surrender on this one. This is not the kind of hand you want to see. Akuma, I'm just gonna surrender now because I'm dead. We can try that again. Let's try a rematch. I got a brick hand. Well, sometimes you get stuck with this. We're playing literally every Ursarctic, and they were like, you want an Ursarctic? Nope. Let's just, you know, there's a chance I could win off of Maxi, but that doesn't really show what this deck can do, does it? Let's try again. Let's go again. Rematch. Okay, this is more, I mean, it exists. It doesn't do anything. This is like the third hand in a row where it's like, at least I have some Ursartics. So maybe if I don't die this turn and the thing goes off and I don't fuck it up, maybe I can do something next. But as it stands, it's like, oh hey, the Ursartics, we've got hand trap cards. That would be neat, right? If I could activate them, but I need to control another Ursarctic. And it's oops, all tuners. Interesting. Defense mode? Did you forget that you had gone second? Okay. Gotcha. Utopia Ray! We got it, chat! Okay, so we survived. We drew a couple cards. They've got a face down, and this thing represents 2 monster negates. But I might just have what it takes to be a rock and roll band, you know? I'm out there on the streets, I'm playing my music, I'm getting a noise complaint, but I'm keeping at it. Let's go ahead and start with the Ursarctic radiation. Let's get radioactive. We're gonna go Mechabilis. And we'll discard the Megapolar. And I'm going to Ash that, because that summons 2 monsters from the deck, and I don't want you to be doing that. I'll draw a card. I like to draw cards. Okay. We're getting there. Let's go ahead and let's pretend we're a burger chef and we'll serve up an Ursarctic slider. I forgot this is only from the graveyard. I thought it was from the hand. That's fine. We'll summon this out of the graveyard, and then we can use this to pop the Pegasus. And I'm just now realizing that radiation only lets you do stuff if it's from the hand or extra deck. So I don't get the draw off of this. Let's go ahead. We're going to activate the Megatannis. We'll discard the Megapolar. Summon this. And then, can we chain block? We'll flip you face down, and then we'll draw a card. Nice. But this negates on resolution, I suppose, so, you know. And this is only when it's special summoned. Okay. So, what I have to do here now is tribute summon this using these 2. And it doesn't even get its effect when it's tribute summoned, which is awful. But we can make Polari. And we can activate some stuff. Draw a card, get the field spell. Now we can activate this, and because we've got the field spell, we can banish 1, summon 1. Only once per turn. I guess we'll do this one. I haven't done this yet. Let's banish this. It seems like it has a graveyard effect. I didn't actually read it, but it might. And then, I mean, they are an Ixie deck, so we could stop them, but I think we can't beat over them with Septrion. We need to get Grand Chariot. So we can finally make this. Grand Chariot. Let's pop you and you. And then we draw another card. Yay, drawing cards. Alright, we've cleared the field, chat. And now we can battle for 2,700. We did it, and all we had to do was draw the card that let us draw 7. Main phase 2, we'll set this. And we're actually in pretty good position. Do I want to shuffle anything back? Yeah. Let's shuffle back the bear, because it doesn't do anything in the graveyard. I guess you can get around with just playing one of the bear. And they've got Pot of Greed. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to activate Megatanis by banishing the... Oh, not from our hand. The Mechs from the graveyard. And we're going to summon this. And then, because we control one, we can flip you face down. Although we just banished from the... I have no idea how this will work. Can they summon with a face down card? Can they have face down Ixie material? It doesn't look like they can. I think we actually did something. We found the one deck that we can counter, chat. We did it. And then we will activate Slider. We'll bring back Megapolar. Megapolar will use its effect to pop the card. And then during the end phase... Oh, it gets destroyed. Yeah, I forgot about that. Shuffle one back? Yes. Let's shuffle one of these back. Okay, we can only control one of these. Well, we could just do this again. So we can get Mechs by banishing Megabilis. We can draw a card. I thought this let me... Oh, it summons one from the hand. I thought this was the graveyard recovery card. Okay, and then we just make the bear again, right? Go bear. Fortunately, we already banished one from the graveyard, so we can't do that again. So I could tribute off Grand Chariot and then make the synchro, but that kind of... Sure, let's do it. Tribute that. We just summon it back immediately. Get back. We need the tuna. Spell trap. Oh, yeah. We could steal. We can't do anything with the steal, but we've got it. Okay. There's Septitron. This has literally 100 attack, but at least we can go in for battle. At least we've got the battle. And I'm just now realizing this doesn't have any kind of effect that gets it off the field after it's used its 7 counters. So I can't activate another one because I can only activate one. And I have no way to get rid of it. I'm just stuck with a 0 counter radiation. Fantastic. Yeah. And we'll activate this. I think we've won either way. I think we're good, but, yeah, we could... Okay, so now I'm seeing where this is like... I was like, how is the search good? It's like, well, if you've got the field spell, which you should if you've gotten there, you now have the Book of Moon during your opponent's turn. And then we can, like, activate the Book of Moon and just, like, banish something from grave. I don't know, Billis. Summon this. Activate the effect, flip the level 4 face down. Another one! Alright, well now they've got some stuff. If they were playing anything other than an Ixie deck, I'd be kind of screwed. But again, we found ourselves against the one deck that is going to have trouble against Ursarctic. Yes! We'll go ahead and do this. I'll pitch the useless one from our hand and we'll summon this. Even though it can't banish anyway because of other stuff. But if they thought they could, now they cannot. Although they can attack over that. And then make Zeus! But the Zeus effect is negated and I can steal it. That's my Zeus. Nom nom nom. So there you go, chat. You know, if your opponent is playing a deck designed to counter graveyard decks, like if that becomes the anti-meta, then this can be the anti-anti-meta. The double anti-meta. And look, you can make Baronne de Fleur using the Chaos Hunter and your Ash Blossom. Behold the power of Ursarctics, I guess. And we'll flip this up too. There you go. I will make your own Exorcister watch. I am truly the villain this time. Ah, ha, 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 ha. All right, so there you go. I think you have a handle on Ursarctic by now. How you play, you know. If you draw good and you go first and you don't fuck it up, and your opponent is playing exactly a Link or Ixie deck, you might just have what it takes. And also, you've got to draw the card that lets you draw 7. But you've also got to use that and end your turn before you draw 7, because you're not going to be able to do it again. Not unless you play like Twin Twisters or Forbidden Droplet or something that lets you send this off to do stuff, which might be the only change I'd recommend. I'm not really sure what to take out of this though. As we saw in a bunch of tests, it's like, if you don't open exactly like a tuner and a non-tuner and like a specific number of them and maybe like the field spell or this or that, you're really kind of screwed. You're really kind of in a bad way. You need consistency tools, and right now they just don't exist. Maybe some more draw power, but if you do that, then you're giving up like Ash, you're giving up Maxi, you're giving up things that allow you to prevent your stuff from getting axed or Maxied. So it's really up to you. And the extra deck is mostly just for show. I'm not sure what else we could have reasonably added, but there's some chance. Either way, hopefully you learned a bit about this deck. I will give it to it. It's at least fun. If you could find like some kind of rogue casual format where this is playable, this is a fun deck. And it does have, I believe the last time I tried to make it, I mixed it with Dangers. You could theoretically do that because a lot of them are level 8 or higher and they get effects when they're discarded. Although these tribute, so it doesn't activate them, but maybe you could do something. Maybe something with Mech Knights. Mech Knights might work. They're high-level monsters you can discard. Hard to say, hard to leg. Only you can do something that ends with leg. The rhyme's not there. If you have any ideas for how to better solve the rhyme, leave them down in the comments. And while you're down there, make sure to give the video a like if you liked it. Make sure to thank Cat Monarch for making this episode possible. Say hello to yourself if you're in Twitch chat and you're watching this for a second time. And of course, if you want to suggest decks of your own, consider looking at the Patreon. Or just, you know, supporting me in general. The Patreon helps either way. So thank you for coming. Good luck. Have fun. Say goodnight, critter.